Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, my fine friends. Welcome to the 6th episode of Season 14 of the Tom Petty Project podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Brown, and this is the only weekly podcast that digs into the entire Tom Petty catalogue, song by song, album by album, and includes conversations with musicians, fans, and people connected with Tom along the way. So, first things first, back to Jake Watch. Our boy, Jake Thistle, made it through to the top 14 on American Idol. Despite, I guess, I was reading that on one odds site, he had a less than 1% chance. So, hey, there you go. The Petty Nation rallied behind our boy, and he's got through the top 14. His performance last night was a cover of John Hyatt's Have a Little Faith in Me. And it was super cool to see him sitting center stage at a beautiful grand piano and showing the judges that he's both a multi-instrumentalist and also as accomplished a singer in the lower registers as he is in the higher ones. Voting happened again, and for, I think, the first time in Idol history, from what the presenter said anyway, they delayed the vote, or announcing the vote. So we're getting another cliffhanger, and we won't find out until next Monday whether Jake has made it through to the final 12. Yet again, his performance was composed, confident, and superbly executed, so I think he has to have a really, really good chance of making the next cut too. Now, I don't play Tom Petty's music in this podcast, but I have way fewer qualms about borrowing from a gigantic TV network, so if you missed it, here's his performance.
When a road gets dark and you can no longer see, just let my love throw a spark and have a little faith in me. Have a little faith in me. Have a little faith in me. When your secret heart cannot speak so easily, come here, darling, from a whisper star. Have a little faith in me. And when your back's against the wall, well, just turn around and you will see. I'll be there to catch you fall. Just have a little faith in me. 'Cause I've been loving you for such a long time, baby, expecting nothing in return, just for you to have a little faith in me. And I will hold you up, I'm gonna hold you up, because your love, it gives me strength enough, so have a little faith in me. Hey, hey, baby, all you gotta do is just to have a little faith in me.
Last note on Jake, my pal Marilyn Manning over on Facebook used to have a group called Jake Thistle and Tom Petty Fans. She's named that now. She's changed it to just Jake Thistle. So the name of the group is Jake Thistle Fans Forever, and that's an homage back to Tom Petty Fans Forever that our sadly departed friend Gwen Jones set up years and years and years ago. So I'll leave a link in the episode notes for that. If you are a Jake fan or you're interested in learning more about him, that'll be a good group to go hang out in. Another one of my more recent guests, Shine, just announced the upcoming release of her first EP of original material, so that's super exciting, and I'll be sharing that once it's released, and maybe even bringing Shine back onto the show to talk about it if she wants to. Rounding out the trio of fabulous female performers I chatted to at the Tom Petty weekend or afterwards, Robin Shakedown also announced a new album coming soon this year, and Maggie Clifford recently posted on Instagram that she too will be releasing a new record later in 2026, so I'll have plenty of fun conversations to hopefully look forward to this year. Next up, last week's poll. I gave Jack a 6 out of 10, which feels low perhaps, but it's still a passing grade for me, so I was curious to see how this one would shake out. It's one of the few songs I've put up polls for so far that didn't get any 10 out of 10 votes. 44% of you voted it a 7 to 9 out of 10, while the majority sided with me and ranked it at a 6 or below. So again, this doesn't mean that any of us dislike this song or think it's a weaker track, just that when you stack it up comparatively against the rest of this amazing catalogue, it can't really end up on that very, very top shelf, or it certainly doesn't for me. Okay, over on social media. On Instagram, Lisa Kelly Pennington left me a nice note, as usual, commenting on a few different things. So Lisa was one of the people who, very respectfully, expressed concerns about the use of AI for the season artwork and wrote, I really like the new aesthetic for the season. Everything looks great. Well, thanks so much, Lisa. I'm glad you like it. The amalgamation of language when you move away is fascinating. Sometimes I can't remember when I started using different words for things, like firefly instead of lightning bug. There's a New York Times dialect quiz you can take, and it always pegs me for my home region, but I have to stop and think about what I used to say versus what I might say now. There's a recent video of the Goo Goo Dolls covering You Wreck Me, and Johnny Resnick talks about how Tom is the only person cool enough to use corduroy in a song. And then she says, no, I didn't think you'd go so low. I said 7. 3 and 2. See, Kevin, you can never comment on how well I'm doing in a season. It's a surefire sign I'll get the next one wrong. So that's a reference to me, in the first instance, to me talking about being an immigrant and routinely getting confused about the slang I use, whether it's English or Canadian or what part of England, so all the different phrases and idioms, etc., that come from having lived in 2 different countries. So I'm really glad it's not just me, Lisa. And yeah, I had a horrible feeling that I would be stumping you with my rating on this one, so my apologies. And I won't jinx you this week. In fact, how about we use the old Jedi mind trick? So here, Lisa, I confidently predict that you won't get a single correct guess for the rest of the season, which probably means you'll get them all right? On Facebook, my good pal and co-executive producer Steve Ursel commented simply, I like it. A bit quirky and quite catchy. 7 for me. And yeah, I'm a sucker for quirky songs, Steve, as you know, so I'm on board with this. Singer, songwriter, and former guest Sam Krishnan replied, cool production. I like the stacked vocal layers on this one. It's a solid 6.5 out of 10 for me. And I may have to push him to find out which way he'd go if he had to round up or down. My other executive producer, Paul Roberts, wrote, great pod, Kev. Good petty song, but not top draw. Although to my ears, it sounds a little out of place on this release. 7 out of 10. Now, I can sort of see what you mean, Paul, about, out of place, but I think it's possibly more that it's so radically different again to anything else in the catalogue. So when I'm listening to the album as a whole, I don't necessarily feel that it doesn't fit, but I definitely can see how one could think that. The marvelous Rich Gibson commented, I think I agree with all you've said, Kevin. It's got a great atmosphere and sound, especially the hypnotic figure in the verse, the lead vocal effect and the guitar riffs and Tom's bluesy solo. I'm glad it's on the record. It doesn't outstay its welcome, but I think 6 out of 10 is a fair score to differentiate between that and top table petty. While Nora Haywood Olsen surprised me by saying it's not one of my favourites. In fact, sometimes I find myself skipping the track, but I can't quite put my finger on why. So that's interesting, and if you do manage to figure out what that is, Nora, do let me know. Tom White says, I like this tune, but it's definitely in the bottom 60% of the petty catalogue, probably in the bottom 25% if you line all the songs up. And I have to say, I'd most likely agree with this. It's such a strong catalogue that there's a very, very high bar to clear. Daniel Cristofori disagrees, however, saying, this is an 8 or a 9 for me. I don't know, I like it, but it looks like this might be the lowest scoring song based on these polls. So it's the first 6 for me since a couple of tracks on Echo, but hey, look, if you like it, Daniel, and no one's opinion should matter more to you than yours. Lastly, Jeremy Murray makes a great comparison, saying, I like the Who-esque chords and production. And I commented back that that's a good call with, those ringing chords in the turnaround have a distinctly Townsend-esque vibe to them that I just hadn't caught before. I hadn't sort of noticed it. And yeah, send me a DM, Jeremy. Maybe we could find a time to sit down and get you on the show to chat towards the end of this season, perhaps. Okay, well, thanks for all your feedback as always, folks. Apologies as always if I missed anyone. I'll try to catch you next time. But let's get into the last song in the first half of the album. It's a track that could have opened Highway Companion, but I'll contend later in the episode that track 6 is the perfect place for it. It's time to buckle up and turn this car around. So here's something I discovered about this song that I find quite intriguing. It was played 18 times in all in 2005, but before the album was released. Further, it's the only song on the album that was played before the release. In that set of gigs from June 7th to July 15th of 2005, it was ever present and usually one of the first 5 songs, often coming after Free Fallin'. In conversations with Tom Petty, author Paul Zollo says that Turn This Car Around is a great opener, and Tom says, yeah, it says opener to me. So this is really interesting to me. So my guess is that maybe Turn This Car Around was the album opener until quite late into the release process, and as Tom and the guys worked up those set lists for those early 2005 dates, before the Highway Companion Tour kicked fully into gear in 2006, maybe it was seen as the most logical song to get warmed up and fully baked. And when you look at the songs that were played on the Highway Companion Tour, you start to build a picture of why most of the songs on this record didn't see much stage time. The Highway Companion Tour in 2006 also ended up being the band's 30th anniversary tour, during which they pulled out a lot of the hits and had fun with a few covers, but I think maybe the Highway Companion songs were as much a victim of timing as anything else when it comes to explaining their lack of representation in Tom's set lists. Only Saving Grace really had any staying power from this album, being played 94 times in all, and of the rest, only Square One was played more than 20 times. Well, it's all interesting stuff, folks, to me at least. The song starts with that insistent, you don't know how it feels, boom, boom, cha, kick snare pattern, and there's some really delicate hat work going on that isn't exactly just quarter notes. There are slightly open beats in there and a couple of extra very light grace notes on the hats in a couple of places. The bass guitar takes a prominent role, thudding away under that tense A major chord that the lead guitar suspends with that additional note that's added in. And if you want to see what that is, go check out the brilliant Judge Timbers YouTube video. He's put another one up and done a full cover of this song that is fantastic, so go check that out. There is a link in the episode notes so that you can do that. Going purely off the album liner notes, I suspect it's Mike taking that lead guitar part, and I couldn't quite tell at first if there was a second guitar in there because I felt rather than heard it. But I think it's just playing that palm muted part while the lead guitar rings out those last notes. When the first verse kicks in, though, you can definitely hear there are two guitar parts on that chord change. You can hear that copper wound growl of the low acoustic strings in the left channel as the brighter electric guitar plays on the right. In the second half of the verse, as Tom sings, above the lonely feather circles to the ground, we get that additional lick. And again, I couldn't initially decide whether that was a keyboard running through a Leslie amp or Mike mimicking that tremolo on the slide guitar, which we'll get lots of in this song. And at the very tail end of that phrase, under the word sound, you can hear, I think, what's the telltale sort of indicator that that actually is the guitar. It's that the noise of the slide moving on the strings, and it's just ever so faint. And again, I thought at first it could be a trick of the brain, and sort of hidden in plain sight, but I think it clarifies later. The other thing you can hear clearly after the line, I'm going back, and when we return to the main riff, is the decay of that cymbal hit. It's like a very low hiss, like a coiled snake getting ready to strike, and I love that it's been left in the mix to make that flip back from the chorus to the main progression feel seamless. In the second verse, we have more slide, filling in a couple of licks in the spaces between the vocal lines, and this is what confirmed in my mind that it was also slide in that first instance. It sits in exactly the same space in the mix. To this point, we've had a very brooding, moody piece of music with a similarly dark-feeling lyric over top. Save a dream for me, words hang in the air. Her demons take the dare. Above, the lonely feather circles to the ground. The house don't make a sound. Turn this car around. Turn this car around. I'm going back. So a few things here lyrically. The first is there's a very, very dreamlike quality to this one. Her demons take the dare, and above the lonely feather circles to the ground. A very, very powerful but very abstract and seemingly unconnected imagery. But there's something really ominous about it all. When Tom sings "The house don't make a sound," I get the feeling that the silence in the house is born of terror, not contentment or peace. Her demons take the dare definitely helps frame that sentiment, but you can't help feel, especially with that suspended chord in the verse, and then a chorus that doesn't really resolve to the root, that Tom's deliberately keeping this tension wound tight as a drum. Coming out to the second chorus, we do then get that bridge which breaks the song wide open. You have Tom's vocal with a huge delay on it, accompanied by the crunchy guitar playing double time under the cleaner distortion of the main guitar over top. There's also an organ sitting in the high register, but mixed very lightly onto that right channel. It's just a glimmer of texture, and it disappears like a mirage once we move into that hugely Beatlesy descending progression that jumps miles away from the main key to end up on F sharp major, of all things. It's a really unexpected and really impactful section to lift us up out of all that tension, yet at the same time, because it's non-linear compared to the chord you'd expect in the main key, there's this chaotic, disorienting sense that keeps you in this suspenseful state. And I wanted to comment here too that, while Tom stopped chasing any sort of trends back in the 80s, Runaway Trains probably is the last song I would say where you thought Tom was, trying to sound like anything that was in the charts at the time. Here, there's a slight feeling of him teasing the early aughts alt-rockers or 90s rockers like Weezer or The Strokes, with that very simple, chugging, distorted guitar playing power fifths. It's exactly the right thing to play here, but it almost feels like a little sonic wink at all these damn kids with their loud rock and roll music, like Tom saying to them, I hear you carrying the flag. As this section ends, we have Tom's vocal hey being repeated on that echo as the song moves back into the main progression. All right, folks, it's time for some petty trivia. Your question from last week was this. On the 16 canonical Heartbreakers and solo studio albums, excluding instrumentals, how many songs come in at a runtime under 3 minutes? Is it A, 7, B, 18, C, 29, or D, 41? So, there's not a lot to say about this one, and I can't really drag this section out this week very much, can I, by giving you a breakdown for each answer? Your answer is 29. So, what I did end up doing, though, is counting song lengths on the 16 canonical albums, plus Mary Jane's Last Dance, and I looked at songs under a minute, then 1 to 2 minutes, 2 to 3, etc., using 2 minutes and no seconds to 2:59 as the framing, and it should come as no surprise that the majority of Tom's songs, almost half, land in the 3 to 4 minute range, with 4 to 5 minute songs being the next most common and 2 to 3 minute songs being the third most popular. I also took a look at what the most common single song length is, and I should say this is all from the track lengths taken from Wikipedia, which I think are more or less correct in most cases. But based on that, I can say that 3 minutes and 59 seconds is the most frequent song length, with 5 songs coming in at that time. Well, look at that, I did manage to drag this out unnecessarily, after all. Anyway, your question for this week is this. What is the difference between a highway and a freeway? Is it A, highways are always longer than freeways? B, freeways allow direct access from roads and driveways? C, freeways have no intersections and only ramp access, while highways can have intersections? Or D, there is no difference? Okay, back to the song. The king and queen are loaded, falling off to sleep. The ground begins to creep. Rockets in the taillights, red burns into night, rolling out of sight. Again, such incredible imagery here in the second half of this verse. Rockets in the taillights, red burns into night. There's that hypnotic sense sometimes that he's capturing, when you're tired and you're driving at night, of that, the red glow from the car in front or the cars in front, stretching back and right into your car in that sort of line, so it becomes less than a dot and more of a, a straight line. There's absolutely no actual clarity here to the story that Tom is telling us. And as I said at the top, it has that dream state quality, but not a dream you wake up from feeling refreshed or happy. All these words that Tom uses throughout this song they're abrasive and hard words: lonely, demons, shouldering, creep, burns. There's no comfort in any of this. Again, through this last verse, we have Mike adding in those haunting slide accents, but otherwise, Tom maintains lots of space in the arrangement to allow that oppressive, persistent riff to just keep pounding away at you. And just when you think we're going to start winding down, Tom adds a harmony vocal to the second time he sings "Turn This Car Around" before "I'm Going Back." After this chorus, we get a synth swell, and Mike's sublime slide solo kicks into gear over the verse progression. All very simple, very clean lines. And I've commented on before fairly often that I find Mike's slide playing does borrow or is inspired by George Harrison quite often, but this one feels closer to something Joe Walsh might play to me. There's a song on Foo Fighters' album Sonic Highways called "Outside" that features Joe as he takes the solo, and his part on that song, it reminds me of this one a little bit because it doesn't try to do too much, but lets the space between the notes add just as much emotion as the notes themselves. In conversations with Tom Petty, Paul Zollo mentions this solo, and Tom waxes lyrical about Mike's playing, saying, "Incredible, isn't it? He's just incredible. He does it so effortlessly. He just makes that sound. He's very clever with how he used the guitar. He's just a genius with guitar sounds." High praise indeed, but not at all undeserved. The song ends on that last chord as Tom sings, "I'm going back." So even at the last, we're left in no state of resolution, melodically or lyrically. So, what's it all about? Now, as I said before, this one is very indistinct narratively, and very obviously that's hugely intentional. Tom clearly doesn't want to give us the keys to unlock the meaning of this one because it works so much better if there is some mystery. So your homework, listeners, for this week is to tell me what you take from this. Is this an unhealthy relationship? Is it a dawning of realization on the part of one person, an escape? What is this? Here's my spin. In my mind's eye, I see a younger couple, maybe mid to late 20s, driving an old Cadillac along a dark, deserted highway. See, I tied this back to Joe Walsh. See that? A kid, I don't know, about 7 or 8, is in the back seat, having a bad dream, tossing and turning and sleeping very restlessly. Not exactly a nightmare, but one of those dreams that leaves you feeling really unsettled for the rest of the day once you wake up and you can't quite remember why. It's only remember the feeling it left you with. And in this context, the verses are the phases of the dream in which unseen forces threaten to harm this kid, and the choruses are their internal monologue reaching out to mom and dad and telling them to turn the car around. I'm going back. I need to go back. Reverse course. Get me back to safety. Now, as I've said before when I present my ideas about what these song lyrics mean, I'm not suggesting for one second that this is what was intended. Almost certainly it isn't. But as with the best art, and time again, Tom does this, we're given this broad canvas onto which we can apply our own paints. My paints in this instance are all greys and blacks and dark browns with a single red streak running underneath. You know, it's that auburn tint from the second verse. The last thing I wanted to do is circle back to the placement of this one. I think the idea of this one opening the record is interesting, but I'm kind of glad it doesn't. There are darker and more pensive moments on this album, but it isn't the core sonic quality of it. Tom tells Paul Zollo, "I wanted the album to have a somewhat similar sound throughout. I didn't want it to be one of these and now one of those. We'd done that before. I wanted this to have a thread of character sonically." And this song, along with, last week's song Jack and possibly Golden Rose, those are the darker sonic moments that let the rest of the album shine. If you opened with Turn This Car Around, I think you would maybe risk people wondering if this is going to be a downbeat record, which it definitely isn't. So Saving Grace becomes the next most natural opener. So where do you put this song? Well, the most obvious place is at the end of the first vinyl disc. Turn this car around, turn this record over to the second half. And when we hear the next song, that turnaround is completed in spectacular fashion as we move into a track that couldn't be thematically or sonically much different. Okay, Pettyheads, that's it for this week. This is one of the songs that jumped right out at me the first couple of times I heard this record, and it's one of the deeper cuts that has so much weight to it. It shows that Tom wasn't slowing down at all as a songwriter. And Tom tells Paul Zollo, "I remember Jeff saying, I really wouldn't know what bag to put this in. I've never heard anything like it." Well, Tom, I'd say the same. You know that I love the abstract, moody stuff, so for me, Turn This Car Around is an 8 out of 10. The Tom Petty Project is a proud member of the Boneless Podcasting Network, which is a loose collective of podcasting friends and acquaintances brought together and championed by the inimitable Chaz Charles. Go check out the roster by clicking on the link in the episode notes. You can also check out My The Podcast, Seaside Pod Review, a Queen podcast that I do with my best friend Randy Woods, who performs all the music you hear in this podcast. You can also check out the Ultimate Catalog Clash that I co-host with my great pal Corey Morissette. We are back onto Blondie. We just did Side A of Parallel Lines, and we don't have much. We've only got 3 more sides left, 3 more weeks, and this are the album reviews for this season. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at The Tom Petty Project, and on Blue Sky at Tom Petty Project. Go follow, like, subscribe as applicable, and please leave a review or a rating if you haven't done that already. Keep talking to me on social media, and I will read out your comments on the show. And as your weekly reminder, the Tom Petty Project is not affiliated with the Tom Petty Estate in any way. So, when you're looking for Tom's music, please visit official streaming platforms, or better yet, go to your local independent record seller, buy some records, buy some cassettes, buy some CDs, just go buy some music. If you're looking for official merchandise, go to store.tompetty.com. And if you're looking for merch for this show, please go to store.tompettyproject.com. Don't forget to check out the Tom Petty Nation and Tom Petty Fans Forever groups on Facebook, and make sure you check out Tom Petty Radio on Channel 31 on Sirius XM. Until we meet again next week, keep listening to and sharing Tom's music. Try to be kind. Try to say I love you to someone at least once a day. Stay safe and healthy, and I'll be back with you next week to talk about one of my all-time favorite Petty deep cuts, Big Weekend. Bye-bye.